What happens when you have a movie where everyone reads the comic except for the director? Welcome back, everyone. We're here today to talk about Supergirl, which is a movie that I watched, and there are some things that I really liked about this movie, and I do have some criticisms about it. I think there are some people that are being a little harsh on it, so we're gonna analyze the entire film and discuss what works and what doesn't work and why. But before we get into that, I want to know who is a character from the DC universe, from DC Comics, that you would like to see get a solo movie? Because I don't think that Supergirl was necessarily where everyone was hoping we would go next, especially when we have so many amazing people in the Justice League. But Supergirl is definitely a character that I like in the comics. I think Kara is really cool because she's kind of a bit of a hot mess. And that is something that I appreciate about where this movie went with the character. We're gonna get into a lot of what's going on in this. So I do have a spoiler-free review that's available for my members, but just a heads up, we will be talking spoilers in this review as we analyze what went right and just what went wrong. So I guess let's start off with the story in this movie. Supergirl is a movie that story is inspired by Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is a comic by Tom King. I know that this comic is widely beloved by many people that have read it, and I have read quite a few things by Tom King. I'm still slowly making my way to catching up through Tom King's Wonder Woman right now. I really loved Tom King's Vision, so I'm familiar with his work, and this story, I think, is a good story that we have, but the film adapts it in, I think, more of broad strokes. However, the main points of what I know of that story, it seems like they get right. I have not read the entire series, but I do want to read that series and then potentially come back and do a video where I'll compare the two. So if that's something that interests you, let me know in the comments and maybe we'll get around to doing that here on the channel. But for now, I'll say that the story that we get in the movie is, I think, overall fine. At its core, this idea of Supergirl going out on a journey with another young woman who needs her help in order to avenge the death of her family. And that's Ruthie's character, who is also in the movie. I think all of that is good. And what I love is that we get this connection between those two characters, those two women who have been through that loss. You get Ruthie, who it's very fresh for her. You get Kara, who this happened a while ago, but she still hasn't fully processed the loss of her world, the loss of her people. And the parallels that you can draw between those two characters, I think, are great. And when the film draws on that and uses that to connect these two women, it is very powerful. However, they also decided, for some reason, that Krem is not a vile enough person for killing all of Ruthie's family. And instead, we're like, you know what we need to do? We need to make him a guy that also takes all these women against their will, makes them brides for an all-male race. Why? Why do we always have to do this? This is my one of my complaints, probably my biggest complaint in this movie, is that it does the thing that I kind of have grown to really dislike with female-led films, where people feel this need to make it about like men versus women. And that's not to say that that's not a sometimes worthwhile story. Obviously, there is a lot of trafficking that happens the world over, and I think there is a lot of interesting things you can say about that problem. And it's relatable because we're still living it today. So I'm not saying there's no place for those stories. I'm just saying, why is it when we already have a character like Supergirl, who has so much going on for her in terms of her personal story here and what she's been through and what Ruthie has been through, that we feel the need to add this other layer? I personally feel this story would have been better if we kept it a little bit more simple. You can still have them going around space. It's essentially a space adventure that, to me, feels a little bit comparable to something like Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm not just saying that because James Gunn is our head of the DC cinematic universe right now, because James Gunn was not really affiliated specifically with this film, other than he oversaw who was going to be in charge of it. And I do think he made one very big mistake with that, which we're going to call him out for in a little bit. But it is similar to Guardians in the sense that they're both space adventure stories with superheroes who are going through their own journey while they have to deal with some other mission that they're on. Now, the problem with this movie is that it doesn't really have something to center it, to set it down. With Guardians of the Galaxy, you have a character like Star-Lord, who is both the guy that knows about space and is also the fish out of water. Here, Kara is the person that knows about space. She's been traveling in space. I mean, she's from space. She's been around it her whole life. And she clearly has spent an extended period of time traveling through the cosmos, trying to escape the trauma of her past. Ruthie, however, is a character that I believe has never really left her world. And there are times when we play with Ruthie being the fish out of water, so we have this kind of fun riff between the two of them where Kara's like, look, buying a neck piece for Ruthie that becomes a whole sort of astronaut suit to bubble her up and is the one that's guiding us. She takes the space bus, and Ruthie's the one that's like, I don't know how to speak any other languages. I don't know where I am. But then there are moments where we do absolutely nothing with that. And I think actually an issue that I have when it comes to the characters is that Ruthie, while I think she is well played, I think every actor in this movie actually did a really good job, which makes me really sad that this movie wasn't a better film for these actors who clearly put the work into understanding their characters, to doing their homework, to, you know, doing things like reading comics. I know Millie did it. There are actually photos of her on the set reading comics that you can look up. There are also, I know that Jason Momoa clearly did it because he's clearly a Lobo fan. So he's doing his homework, and he has all of the Lobo things in this. He nails it. He did such a great job. With Ruthie, they just didn't really give her enough of a character to really play with. And so while I think the actress does a great job with what she's given, we're not given much in the way of the character development for Ruthie. And what I feel happened in the film is they took any agency away from her. She's a girl who's on this mission to avenge the death of her family, and yet she seems completely out of her depth, except that she has this air about her where she seems to feel as though she can do this mission, but we don't give her any opportunity to show us how capable she is. Not until later in the film when she's locked up in Krem's prison on his ship and manages to escape by luring a guard into the prison. And then all of a sudden, she's like, I got all these moves. And I was like, where was that the whole film? Because now I'm seeing why Ruthie is like, you know what? You can't convince me to stay out of it, Kara. I'm coming with you. This is my family. It's my mission, and I need to be the one to do this so that I can have some peace. I loved the whole idea of Kara saying to her, you know, you don't want to be the person to do this because it will eat away at you, because then it will become a part of you and you won't actually be able to escape, or not even escape, but really find peace with what happened to you, because you will be haunted by the fact that you took this person's life. And even though Krem is terrible, and I think anyone that watches the movie would probably feel, why are we even defending this man to live? But the thing is that Kara knows that if Ruthie is the one to do that action, it will dramatically take away from her as a person. And it will forever cement what happened to her on her personality, and it will corrupt her. But Kara isn't saying this man doesn't, you know, deserve to be condemned. She's just trying to protect that Ruthie from that. And Kara is the one that ends up taking that on in the end, which I'm glad that we went that way with it, because I was a little nervous. I think Millie did a great job with Supergirl. I think that the script, for the most part, was quite good. And when we have these moments when characters are really connecting with each other and having real conversations, all of the stuff between Clark and Kara, I thought was beautifully done. And it's all very simple too. I think that's what I really like about that. It's not that they have these long-winded, extended conversations that we see flashbacks to them talking at length. They keep all of that pretty brief, and they let everything be about as much what's not said as what is said. That's when the film and the script excels and when it works. But then the movie also feels it has the need to do things like tell you exactly what's happening on the screen. Like, for example, when Kara is lured into a trap and she's looking around this house and she's like, I don't understand. Why have you guys poisoned me Like, what do you get out of this? Even though they already took the time to show us a picture of these people's daughter, and Krem is going around rounding up brides, which we already know. So I wonder why, even though you don't see the daughter in the house, I wonder why we're making this deal. You don't need to tell us, movie. You already showed us the picture, and we already see Kara see it and react to it. So I wish this is a film that would trust its performers more, because they're all doing everything they need to do. I thought all of the Kryptonian stuff was great. I thought when we went back to Krypton, other than at one point there is a doctor that comes in and she has glasses on, and her glasses are literally something I could Google Lens that stuff and I could buy that right now. They put so much attention to detail into the costumes and the sets in this, only for them to be like, you know what, just throw some glasses on her. Why couldn't we have given her some cool space glasses? I don't know. But other than that one nitpick, all of the Kryptonian stuff I thought was really well done. I like how we made it so that when her dad bubbled the city to save them, he didn't realize that in bubbling Argo City, that the kryptonite, which was below the surface of the Earth, would be sort of moved around. And so now it's in the bubble with everyone and it's poisoning them. And I think while I thought watching Argo City starve would have been terrible, in some ways this was worse, because then later kryptonite is used as a weapon against Kara. And as she's laying there thinking, this might be the end, I might die, you know, she's thinking of her parents. And I thought that was really sad and beautiful. I think there's a lot of sad, beautiful things in this film. It's very gritty. I think the grittiness of it works for the film. I think it's going to be challenging for people that are watching this after Superman, though, because Superman is so hopeful and light and bright. And this film is like dark and gritty and sad. I cried a lot in this film. I felt the emotion because everyone was bringing it in the scenes. But the problem is that we have a director that, while he might want to bring that grittiness to the world and he succeeds there, we also have a director that didn't read the comic that the movie is based on. Are you kidding me? Why did we let this man direct the movie? I don't understand. And so I think really where it falls apart is there's clearly some production notes that were given. I feel a lot of the stuff where they feel the need to tell us what's happening on the screen, like, oh, that's the last of the brides that we saved. Just let them run away. I know, I can see that you're pushing them off and they're going. I'm assuming you cleared them all before you wrecked the place. Kara's not a terrible person, you know? She might be a little rough around the edges, but she's a good person. And then the other issue is just that having a director that clearly is focused more on doing his own thing than he is on actually delivering what makes the comic so special. That being said, the people that worked on the film clearly read the comic and cared about it, because I feel it even just in the sets that we're on. There is a level of attention to detail here that I thought was really beautifully done. And it makes me really sad to see the potential of this film be squandered because we had someone helming the ship that just thought they could do something better than Tom King. And I know not everybody likes Tom King. Look, if you don't like Tom King, that's totally fine. But I think that there is enough that we know of his writing to know that, I mean, there's a reason that Tom King is considered to be a legendary comic writer. He's written a lot of important works when it comes to characters from the DC universe. I just am very disappointed. So overall, I think I enjoyed it. The pacing was a little sluggish because it doesn't really feel like this film understands what it's centered around. So I feel like we get a little lost along the way at times. Adding in the layer of this being like women saving women, I don't think that was necessary. I think just let it be a story about women that are people. Why is that not enough for us? Why does every female story need to be like, don't forget about all the injustices that have happened to women because they're women? Look, women that are watching this story, we know, we've lived it. You don't need to remind us all the time, please. So I wish we didn't have that, because I think if they had just simplified this film and stuck to what it was based off of, it would have been a much better piece. However, that being said, I still had a good time with it. And I think people that are saying, I feel like there's some people that are saying that this is like the worst thing ever. I very much disagree. I've seen some really bad movies. This movie is fine. It's good, and that's it. And perhaps that is one of the worst cinema sins you can have, because being good and that's it is like, you almost left no impression on me. But one thing that I will carry with me is that these characters, I think they did justice to them. And I really do hope we get to see more of Millie's Kara, because her and David Corenswet had this amazing chemistry together as cousins. I loved it. And I'd love to see more of them, you know, acting off of each other. And I thought Jason Momoa did an amazing job as Lobo. I'd love to see him come back. And I even think if they wanted to bring Ruthie back, I don't think she'll come back beyond this story. But if they did, if they just leaned in a little bit more to her being this, you know, cool badass, then she also would even have a place in the DCU. So, yeah. I don't know why they felt Krem threatening Crypto and almost taking him away from Kara when that's the one last remnant she really has of her homeworld, other than Clark, who is really more of a guy from Earth than he is a guy from Krypton. I don't know why we felt we needed to add so much more to this. But anyways, that's where I'm at with it. So yeah, I had a good time, but I don't really think it's one that you need to run to the theaters to see, unfortunately. I think you can wait for this to come to streaming. And James Gunn, all I ask is that please make sure the directors read the comics. I'm very surprised that that was a choice that was made and that we allowed it. That's all I have for this one. I'll see y'all in the next one. And until next time, friends, stay nerdy. Bye. And let me know what you thought of Supergirl down in the comments. Also, if you like when I talk about superhero stuff, you can check out more of that over here.